address the problems of homelessness and affordable housing. And now I have the privilege of introducing our keynote speaker, Avery Friedman. As I said, the man is a legend in his own time, and we are certainly honored to have him to address us today. With roughly 3 million viewers each week on CNN, he is a weekly legal correspondent and has the reputation, well-deserved reputation, of being America's best-known civil rights lawyer and law professor. The Wall Street Journal has referred to him as a walking reference source on civil rights law. He's been recognized in Time, the New York Times, and USA Today, and as a nationally distinguished civil rights lawyer and law professor. As you can probably tell from this introduction, it came straight from his office. and you know, I have occasion, and it goes on and on. I'm sure his bio is there, but when I introduce people, and you know, we get these bios, and listen, my bio, if you read mine, it's not as nice as his, but it's pretty nice. But I like to talk to the person, look them in the eye, and try to glean something from that conversation. So I had a chance to spend a few moments with Mr. Friedman, and so I said, well, what is the most inspirational piece of advice you have picked up in your journey? And he started off by saying, well, Martin Luther King Jr. told me. I said, what? Martin Luther King Jr.? And if he desires, I don't know if it's in the speech notes, he can, and I think should, tell you the backstory. But 3 words, and I think they all apply to the work you do. Keep on marching. Keep on marching. So, Mr. Friedman, if you will indulge me, I will not go into the rest of the 5 pages of biographical information that I have here, because I do believe those words, keep on marching, describe what you have been doing through your career, sir. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, let me introduce to you Avery Friedman, Esquire.
Mayor James, ladies and gentlemen, I am so happy to be with you today. Although I need to tell you, Mayor, I almost didn't make it today. About 2 hours before I was to get my flight, the kitchen sink broke. And so I called the plumber, and the guy rushes out there, and he's there, fixed it up, everything's fine, water's running, everything's fine there for 20 minutes. And you know, that was great. Then he gives me a bill for $300. And I go, you know, I'm looking at the plumber, I go, hey, you know, I'm a lawyer. I'm a lawyer, and I don't charge $300 for 20 minutes. Plumber looks at me and goes, you know, when I was a lawyer, I didn't charge that much either. I wouldn't get perspective. The other thing that happened is President Jan took me to lunch. I don't know if she noticed that there were 2 signs at the restaurant. As we walked in, and there were 2, one on top of the other. And the top sign said restrooms with an arrow. And then below it, it said, please wait for hostess to seat you. Now, you know, this is one cordial community, I gotta tell you. We are here today memorializing a remarkable day in American history, especially when it comes to the housing rights of Americans. It was today, 51 years ago, that the Fair Housing Act was passed. Now, I was in Los Angeles last week, I'll be in Little Rock, but I'm in Palm Beach on the day this law got passed, and we celebrate together in this very important moment. Historically, there's only one reason we have a Fair Housing Act in the first place, and that was as a direct consequence of the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on the 4th of April, 1968. Here I am sharing this moment with you, recognizing that that assassination, which changed America, the 4th of April, was the same day this wonderful man, the 4th of April, 2019, was sworn in as your mayor. What do you think of that? As a result of the murder, legislation promising fair housing and fair treatment of Americans rocketed through both houses of Congress, was hand-carried and signed by Lyndon Johnson 1 week after the murder. There is no... The law that we celebrate today is Dr. King's legacy. And again, very misunderstood. Every law in America, we have a Harvard lawyer to your right, we know that every law has to have a constitutional foundation. And the foundation of this law was the 13th Amendment. Have you ever heard of the 13th Amendment? You know what that does? It abolishes slavery. In Palm Beach, on the 11th of April, 2019, we are still having to enforce anti-slavery laws. The Supreme Court, that same year, in a case, Mayor, I hope I say this right, Jones versus Alfred H. Mayer, 392 U.S. page 409, said that housing unfairness is a, quote, badge and incident of slavery. It exists today. And interestingly enough, nobody knows this, it is the 45th anniversary of an amendment to the Fair Housing Act that outlawed gender bias in housing. Homelessness in major part deals with gender. If you don't know that, you can't address the issue. I saw some data that suggested that there are about 1,300 homeless people in Palm Beach. No, they're not. There are thousands of homeless people in Palm Beach. And they're living at their friend's house for a while, and many of the single moms with children didn't want to leave. They got beat up, they got threatened. So gender connects as a central issue in issues of homelessness. Now, how does it work? After 2,000 federal prosecutions, I'm starting to learn a lesson. Deborah Ann Feist was threatened by her husband. She and her 2 children moved out, bought a mobile home. Now, they used to call it trailers, but that's not politically correct here. They're mobile homes. And you know what? I want to be politically correct. I have to tell you, I saw Dick Van Dyke in the revamped version of Mary Poppins. Everybody saw that? But that's not, that's not politically correct. Today they call them penis bond lesbian. So I want to make sure we're clear. All right, 2, 3, 4, 5. Deborah Ann Feist moved out, sorry about that, because she was forced to. She had a mobile home park, and she goes to Ralph's mobile home park with her mobile home. Single mother, 2 children, younger. Now, in mobile home parks, commonly in Florida, I did a federal case not too far from here involving a woman named Irma Princeton in federal court. Many people living in mobile home parks are older. They're older people. And she was 32 years old. And according to the owner of Ralph's Mobile Home Park, whose name was Ralph. He didn't want to rent it to her. And he didn't want to rent that concrete slab because this was his logic. You can't make this up. You couldn't hire screenwriters to come up with this. He says, the problem is we have a lot of elderly people, and wouldn't we all agree that elderly people generally have higher moral standards than younger people? Who would agree with that? Come on, somebody's, all right, one head. Well, that was the assumption. We can't let Deborah Ann Price in here because it's a young, attractive woman. Come around midnight. Every Tom, Dick, and Harry are going to be coming into that park, and they're going to lower the moral value of this park. What do you think? You're not buying it? Okay, well that's what Ralph said under oath in a United States courthouse. And wouldn't you know, well, wouldn't you know that of the 10 federal judges in that particular jurisdiction, it was assigned to the only female federal judge. As you walked into the anteroom before chambers, there was a sign that hung there. And Judge Ann Aldridge's courtroom. And the sign read as follows: women who strive to be equal to men lack ambition. What do you think? She's in the park. She might own the park, actually. But the point is that we use the fair housing law for someone who's about to be homeless. It's a reality. One of the things that I shared with Holy Ground was my approach in federal civil rights litigation to tithe. I know that sounds biblical, but I believe in it. So when you are able to resolve a case or try a case that comes out with a verdict, a portion of that money goes to an organization like Holy Ground. Can you imagine juicing up a budget by making the bad guys pay? By the way, I don't charge anybody. I don't have to. Congress said that if you prevail, the bad guys pay the legal fees. So that's a wonderful thing. You bring suit, no phony baloney, win for the people, make the bad guys pay. And there was an opinion written by a federal judge who said, Avery, you did a good job, your hourly rate is $800. $800? Oh my goodness gracious. But that's what the federal judge said, right or wrong, no appeal, okay, good enough for me. Why that's important is that they pay the legal fees, the money goes to the victim, and part of that money also goes to the organization. So we've sent it to Montana, we've sent it to Detroit. And you know what? I'd like to start sending some money to Palm Beach. This is a real thing. Now, I wish I could relax. I can't relax. I do this 7 days a week. Somebody said golf. Any golfers here? Anybody play golf? Yeah, you know, I tried it, but maybe it's just me, but does anyone have trouble with that windmill? The other thing I guess I have seen is it's a community effort. We don't stand alone. The Diocese of Cleveland has been helpful by sending nuns and priests out undercover to see if there's a difference in treatment. And it's been so much fun to see the defense lawyers look at a woman witness and go, is it Ms. or Mrs.? And the answer is, well, it's sister. I am electrified being with you because of the women of Holy Ground. I am recognizing the historical significance of being next to this extraordinary new mayor you have. And it inspires me to continue to do this work. Much of it is something I call enlightened building. We've heard from Mayor James some of the creative things that are going on. In Los Angeles, they have 40,000 homeless people that they've identified. I was there a week and a half ago. And one of the things they're doing is something called micro real estate development. And it is essentially a Marshall Plan. They are taking accessory units, dwelling units, I want to say it right, accessory dwelling units, ADUs, the stuccos, garages that you see that were built in the 40s and 50s are actually being converted to homes. It seems unbelievable, but it is being done, and it's being done effectively in Los Angeles. You can do the same thing here if you're not already doing it in Palm Beach. It's the real thing, real housing for real people. And solutions, I think, actually transcend generations. I was at Starbucks meeting with some housing people, and I needed to get some coffee. And you know what? I'm embarrassed to tell you. I don't know all the fancy names. So I'm standing in line, and all these people are asking for this, that, and then the clerk, or barista, I beg your pardon. The barista says, what do you have? Well, I didn't want to say, you can't say coffee, because you look like a moron. So I said, well, I'll have one of those Frappo Muga Wonka lattes, hold a whipped cream. The guy actually didn't even question it. It was great. But often in meeting with housing people, they want to get up at 6, 7 in the morning and go to Starbucks. So whatever it is what I do. Now, some of you remember the iconic lyric by Bobby McFerrin in Don't Worry, Be Happy. And the line is, the landlord said, the rent is late. He may have to litigate. That's what I do. And often it happens that, oh, you know, you remember that. Okay, litigate. Deborah Douglas, single mom, 2 kids, and Louis Burroughs was the landlord. She had a voucher, so all she had to pay is $27 a month rent. She was trying to get $27, so Mr. Burroughs decided to litigate. So we raised the appropriate, what I call the Mercedes defense package. We file so many motions, we give them motion sickness. And use the Fair Housing Act, and you know what? Block the eviction, and Mr. Burroughs is now paying a couple years of rent to her, because she didn't want to leave. So it actually works. One of the things I love to do is come back and give me a bunch of lawyers. Give me a bunch of lawyers, I'll teach them how to do this stuff. We'll jam up your federal court. The problem with homelessness in one respect is stigma. Everybody's afraid that if we take somebody that's homeless and put them in a home near me, that's NIMBY. What's NIMBY? Not my backyard. It is a reality. And part of what has to be done is to help the public understand that homeless people, by and large, look like the people sitting next to you. Well, maybe not, but you understand what I mean. That there's nothing especially odd about homeless people. They run into misfortune, as Mayor James has explained. And what struck me was I heard someone say what I thought was a prayer, and it went like this: Lord, in the memory of all the saints who for their labors rest, in the joy of a new beginning, we ask you to help us work for that day when black won't be asked to get back, when brown can stick around, when yellow will be mellow, when the red man can get ahead, man, and when white will embrace what is right. I knew that sounded familiar to me, and it dawned on me that was the blues lament by Big Bill Brucey in something he wrote called Black, Brown, and White. If you think that those barriers don't exist, I promise you, the phone doesn't stop ringing. And if I can show it and prove it, I'm in a federal courthouse where I love to be. The riff by Big Bill Brucey was a gesture both of joyful and wariness, a recognition of historical progress and a reminder that we struggle to solve the problems of those who suffer. That's the motivation. Mayor James mentioned that we have 3 million people watching the show every Saturday. I get to do it from Palm Beach on Saturday. We've been on the air for 18 years now, delivering fake news. And we continue to do so. I must tell you, I'm the least important person at the network. In fact, I'm waiting for someone to tell me to go pick up their laundry or something. But the show seems to be working very well. Today, we are on holy ground with holy ground, sharing the reality of the battle against homelessness and unfair housing practices. Listen, there comes a time when we realize that we have a greater duty, a grander duty, to improve the quality of lives of those less fortunate. And I have seen it in Jan, and I've seen it in Phyllis, and I've seen it in Lonnie, and I've seen it in Candace, and I've seen it in the magnificent women, and it is women, and I'm glad to see. I don't want to apologize on half of my gender. I'm going to turn into Joe Biden. But I will tell you in terms of how precious this is. On September 11th, 2001, I had a daughter who was a public defender working in Manhattan, and she was 8 months pregnant. And that day she was hit. And as the concrete started falling, she went into shock, and shock triggered labor. And NYPD found her on the side of the road, and they caravanned her to the hospital. And at 4:47 on September 11th, a little baby girl was born. And they're both fine. I came back from Manhattan, and there was a 16-year-old boy in the office who had just been thrown out of a public high school. His name was Aaron Pettit. And he had put up on his locker a patriotic poster. And the adults, the school officials, felt that it was too controversial, and they expelled him from the public school. Not suspended him, expelled him. And I just got back from New York, probably the luckiest person on the face of the earth, that my little girl was saved. And I understand how precious life could be. He said, the mom and dad said, Avery, will you take the case? And I said, I'd be proud to take this case. And I'm in a federal courtroom with 8 lawyers. I mean, the courtroom was like this. And I argued to our then Chief Judge, Solomon Oliver Jr., that usually First Amendment speech is nasty speech. They say something nasty. But I said, you know, in America today, I think patriotic speech should be protected. Well, federal judges have extremely broad power. And the federal judge ruled the public school district violated the First Amendment in his putting up a patriotic poster on his locker. But you understand that federal judges have broad powers. He ordered the child back into school, ordered the school district to remediate, and listen to this, ordered the superintendent and the principal to go back to school to learn about the American Constitution. Look at that. So, let me close by suggesting to you that there is always hope. When you lose hope, people will suffer. When you have hope, people will succeed. And the idea of having all of you together, from lending, where are my PNC people, my favorite bank in America, right there with that, who has been instrumental in helping Holy Ground, with the developers, with the people who care, with an enlightened government. We are all partners in the battle to achieve victory against homelessness, to achieve victory against discrimination in housing. And let me tell you something, if you get stuck on something, just push the button, folks. I'll be there. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Avery, and thank you, Mayor. Wow, that's very inspiring. I'm sure it gave you an appetite. But before we break to get your box lunch and then bring it back to your table, I just want to take one moment to thank the sponsors for today. I have to say, this was an opportunity for us to reach out to people, and we were thrilled that our sponsors, the Mary Alice Fortin Foundation, PNC Bank, Old Palm Beach, the Jenks and Harvey Law, Lonnie Martins, and A Genesis Construction really came forward, and they said, we believe in this and we want to underwrite this for you. So I want to thank them and give them a lot of applause for this. We have a delicious lunch awaiting you, so please take some time, go pick out your favorite lunch, and I would ask you to bring it back. If you have not signed up for a discussion group and would like to, you can do that as well. And then we will start again in about 15-20 minutes. Thank you.